I used to think love was simple, that when two people found each other and decided to stay, that was it. No drama, no secrets, just trust. For 30 years, that was my life with Laura. At least, that's what I believed. Laura was light, the kind of woman who filled every room with warmth. Her laugh, soft and contagious, could turn a bad day into something bearable. She wasn't flashy, didn't care about fancy things. She loved the small details, the smell of morning coffee, the sound of rain on the roof, the way the curtains danced in the wind. We met in our 20s. I was a broke construction worker, covered in dust and dreams. She was a librarian at the town's small public library, always reading, always learning. She used to say books were windows into people's souls, and somehow she managed to open mine. Our first date was at a park. I was so nervous that I spilled coffee on my jeans. She laughed so hard that I thought she'd never stop. That laugh, I can still hear it. It's strange how a single sound can become a memory you cling to when everything else falls apart. We didn't have much, but we built everything together. Our first house had cracks in the walls and a leaky roof. But every night, we'd lie in bed and dream about the future, about the business I wanted to start, the trips we'd take, the family we'd build. And we did. We built a life from nothing. My small construction company slowly grew, one project at a time. Laura kept the books, handled clients, and somehow made every customer feel like family. She was the reason people trusted me. I used to come home late, tired and sore, but she'd always be there. Lights dimmed, dinner warm, a quiet smile on her face. Sometimes she'd be reading a novel, sometimes humming along to old songs from the radio. We never needed much. Our happiness lived in the ordinary. But as the years passed, life changed. My company expanded. We bought a bigger house. Nothing extravagant, just comfortable. We finally had savings. And for the first time, we didn't have to worry about money. That's when I thought we'd made it. When everything felt stable, secure, safe. Looking back now, I realize how naive that was. Because comfort can make you blind. It can hide the cracks forming beneath your feet. The first signs came quietly. Laura started waking up earlier than usual. I'd find her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her tea without drinking it. When I asked what was wrong, she'd smile and say, "Just thinking." Thinking about what? She never said. Sometimes I'd hear her on the phone, whispering late at night. She'd stop talking when I entered the room, pretending it was nothing. I told myself she was probably talking to her sister or maybe an old friend. But deep down, a part of me knew something was off. She started losing weight. She'd skip meals saying she wasn't hungry. And the laughter, that beautiful, effortless laugh, it slowly faded. Our home was quiet again, but not in the peaceful way it used to be. It was the kind of silence that hurts. One night, as we were having dinner, she suddenly asked, "Do you ever think about how much time we have left?" I laughed, thinking she meant retirement or vacations. But her eyes stayed fixed on her plate. I should have asked her what she really meant. I didn't. Because when you love someone for that long, you start believing they'll always be there. You stop paying attention to the small signs that something's breaking. A few weeks later, she started sorting through old boxes in the attic. Old photos, receipts, letters. She packed some away, burned others. I remember asking, "What are you doing?" She smiled softly. "Just cleaning up the past." Cleaning up the past. At the time, I thought she meant clutter. Now I realize she meant herself. That same month, she began handling all our finances again. We'd always managed things together. But she insisted she could take care of it better. She said it made her feel useful. I didn't argue. I trusted her completely. She even changed the password to our joint account. I joked about it, teasing her that she might be hiding a surprise trip or a birthday gift. She just smiled, that same sad smile that never reached her eyes. Then came the day everything fell apart. It was a Friday. I remember because it was payday. I stopped by the bakery on my way home, bought her favorite chocolate cake. I wanted to surprise her. When I walked in, the house was quiet. Too quiet. "Laura?" I called out. No answer. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air, but her purse was gone. Her clothes, her jewelry box, everything. I checked the closet, empty. The drawers, empty. Even her favorite book from the nightstand was gone. I felt a cold wave of panic. I grabbed my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again and again. Nothing. Then I opened our banking app. $450,000. Gone. Transferred to an unknown account. My first thought was disbelief, then anger, then the kind of heartbreak that makes your hands tremble. 30 years. 30 years of love, laughter, trust, gone in a moment. I called the police, filed a report, tried to track her car. They told me to wait a few days, that she was an adult and had every right to leave. But I knew Laura. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't cruel. If she left, something was terribly wrong. That night I sat on the couch with the cake still in its box. It was melting slowly, untouched. The clock ticked louder than usual. Every second felt like an accusation. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Her last look that morning, distant, thoughtful, almost like she was saying goodbye. I didn't understand it then, but that was the last time I saw my wife. The silence between us had grown heavy. It wasn't loud fights or cold shoulders, just quiet. The kind that fills a room like fog slowly, until you don't even notice you're breathing it in. I tried to fix it in small ways. Brought home flowers, cooked dinner once or twice, even suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. She smiled, that polite kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and said she was too tired from work. So I let it go, because that's what you do when you've been married for 30 years. You pick your battles. You trust that love will find its way back like it always does. But this time, it didn't. One Friday morning, I woke up to an empty side of the bed. Nothing unusual. She liked waking up early. She said the sunrise made her feel alive. But when I came downstairs, the house was silent. No coffee brewing, no hum of the TV, just stillness. I called out her name. Laura? No answer. Her purse was gone. Her phone charger, too. But her phone was sitting right there on the counter. Face down, that's when I felt something cold in my chest. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe she went for a walk, or to the market. But as the hours passed, that tiny whisper of doubt turned into a scream. By noon, I called her sister. Hey, is Laura with you? No, I haven't heard from her in days. Why? That's when I knew something was wrong. I drove around town for hours, checked the grocery store, the clinic, even that old park we used to visit on Sundays. Nothing. Her car wasn't at any of those places. When I came home that evening, the sun was setting, painting everything in orange and red, the kind of light that makes memories feel closer. But all I could feel was panic. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her toothbrush was there. Her favorite sweater, the one she wore every winter, still hanging by the door. But the safe in my office, the one she never touched, was open. Inside, half the folders were missing, and so was the cash, $450,000, gone. That money wasn't just money. It was 30 years of work. The savings from every contract, every late night, every job I'd ever taken. I sat there staring at the empty space where it used to be, my hands shaking. I didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. Laura would never do that. So I did the only thing a man like me could. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe she was scared. Maybe someone forced her. Maybe she needed to disappear because the alternative, that she'd simply left and was too much to bear. I went to the police that night. They took my statement, asked for a photo, her details, the car model. One officer, a younger guy, looked at me and asked, "Was there any trouble at home, sir? Arguments? Anything that might have made her leave?" I laughed at a nervous, hollow sound. "No, nothing like that. We were fine." He nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. He'd seen this before. He already had me filed under husband in denial. When I got home, the house felt different. Empty, yes, but heavier somehow. Like her absence had a weight. I walked through each room, touching the things she'd left behind. Her hairbrush, a half-empty bottle of perfume, the mug she used every morning. Everything was still there. Everything except her. Days passed, then weeks. No calls, no letters, no trace. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep either. I just sat in that house, waiting for the sound of her keys in the door. Every knock, every phone ring, My heart jumped. But it was never her. 3 months later, the police told me the case had gone cold. No activity on her credit cards, no flight records, no car sightings. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. That's when the rumors started. People in town whispered, maybe she ran off with someone. I heard it at the grocery store, at church, even from one of my own employees. One guy, I still remember his smirk, said, "Guess even a good man's wife can get bored of perfect." I nearly hit him, but instead I just walked away, because part of me was afraid he might be right. I hired a private investigator. He didn't find much, just one odd thing. A withdrawal from our joint account 2 days before she vanished. $5,000. The note on the transaction read, "Travel expenses." That was all. No clue where. No flight booked in her name. Just those 2 words. Months became years. People told me to move on, to accept it. But how do you move on from a ghost? I stopped running my company. Sold half of it just to keep the lights on. Most days I just sat in my office, staring at the empty safe, that gaping reminder of what she'd taken. And every night before going to bed, I whispered her name, just in case she could still hear me somehow. Then one morning, nearly 4 years after she vanished, I was cleaning the house when I found something strange. Behind an old painting in the hallway, the frame slightly crooked, there was a faint outline on the wall, a small square like a hidden panel. My heart started pounding. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside was a small metal box, dusty, locked, but light enough to hold in one hand. And inside that box was a folded piece of paper, old yellowed, with her handwriting on it. It was a single note, just 4 words. "Forgive me." The red. For a long time I just stood there staring at that note. 4 words, "Forgive me." The red. It felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. My first thought was, is this real? Had she left it before she vanished? Had someone else planted it there? I sat down at the kitchen table, holding that paper in trembling hands, tracing her handwriting with my thumb. It was definitely hers. I'd recognize that looping L anywhere. But what did it mean? Forgive me for what? And the red, what was that? That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out every old box, every photo album, every letter she'd ever written me, looking for something, anything with the word red. By morning, the house looked like a storm had passed through. Papers everywhere. Then I found it, an anniversary card from 10 years earlier. On the back, she'd doodled a small red heart with the words, "You always forget the red file, love. Don't ever lose it. It's where the truth lives." The red file. My hands went cold. I hadn't thought about that file in years. It was an old folder I used back when I managed all the company's contracts. She always reminded me to keep it safe. But that was long before she disappeared. I went to the office, opened my filing cabinet. Nothing. Then I checked the safe. Still empty, but there was something odd. The inside of the safe had faint red smudges along the edges, like someone had handled a dusty folder there. She'd been in it. That realization hit me like lightning. She'd opened the safe, taken the money, and that file. But why? I drove to the old office of my company, the one I'd sold years ago. The new owner, Kevin, still ran it. He looked surprised to see me. "Hey, old man," he said, half smiling. "Haven't seen you in forever." "Yeah," I said. "I just need to check some old records. You mind?" He shrugged. "Sure. Basement still has the old storage boxes. Help yourself." The basement smelled like dust and rust. I searched for hours, my back aching, until I found an old shelf marked Archives 2009-2014. And there it was, a red folder, almost hidden behind a stack of invoices. I pulled it out. It was heavier than I remembered. Inside, there were contracts, nothing unusual, but also letters, not from clients, from a bank, and one from a woman I'd never heard of. The first letter was dated 15 years ago. It was from St. Mary's Medical Center. It read, "Dear Mrs. Porter, we're pleased to inform you that your husband's medical debt has been completely cleared. The anonymous donation you arranged has been processed." I frowned. I didn't have medical debt, and I'd never received any donation. Then I saw another letter, this one addressed directly to Laura, from a woman named Eleanor Price. It said, "Laura, I'm glad we could help him. He's a good man. You did the right thing. My heart started racing. Help who? What did she do? I flipped through more papers, and then, at the bottom of the folder, I found something that made my whole body go cold. A hospital report. My name on it. Diagnosis, stage 2 lymphoma. Date 2008. I couldn't breathe. I read it again and again, but it didn't make sense. I wasn't sick. I'd never been diagnosed with cancer, or at least, that's what I thought. Then I remembered. Back in 2008, I'd gone to the hospital after fainting at work. They said it was exhaustion. Laura told me not to worry. She said the tests came back fine, but that was a lie. She had known all along. She must have found out, taken the diagnosis, and done something about it. I flipped through the rest of the papers and found the last piece. A bank statement. $450,000 withdrawn in small amounts over years, all under Laura's name. It wasn't stolen. It was paid. Paid to a clinic, a private treatment center. For me. I stumbled backward, clutching the folder. Everything started spinning. All those nights she cried quietly. All those times she asked if I was feeling okay. The changes in her, the distance. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. She wasn't running from me. She was running for me. I sat down right there on the cold floor, my hands shaking. I'd accused her, in my mind, in my grief, of stealing from me, of betraying me, but she'd spent every dollar trying to save my life. Somehow, some miracle, the treatment must have worked, and she'd kept it all secret, because she didn't want me to know I was dying. But that didn't explain one thing, why she disappeared. I turned over the last page in the folder. It was a receipt. A plane ticket one way, to a small town in Oregon, under a different name, Eleanor Price. The same woman who'd written to her, the same name from the letter. My heart sank. Laura hadn't just vanished. She'd become someone else. I sat there in silence for a long time, the paper trembling in my hand. And then I noticed one more thing, a small photo tucked inside the folder. It was Laura, standing beside another woman, older, frail, with kind eyes. On the back, written in her handwriting, "The only person who ever kept my secret." I realized then that Eleanor Price wasn't a stranger. She was Laura's mother. The one she'd always said died when she was a teenager. Everything I thought I knew about my wife, our marriage, her past, even our love, had been a story she'd rewritten to protect me. And now she was somewhere out there, living under a name that wasn't hers. Maybe still trying to keep me safe. Maybe still watching. I didn't know, but I knew one thing. The red note wasn't a clue. It was a confession. Forgive me. The red, forgive me, for saving you with a lie. The red for the folder that held the truth. That night I placed the note back in its box. For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger, only grief and gratitude. Because even in her silence, even in her disappearance, she had still been loving me. In her own heartbreaking way. After I found that photo, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about Laura and the secret she carried all those years. For days, I walked through the house touching the things she'd left behind. The blue apron hanging by the stove, the perfume bottle half full, the old cardigan on the chair by the window. Every item felt like a message, like she'd left tiny breadcrumbs, hoping one day I'd follow them and understand. But I still didn't know where she'd gone. That ticket to Oregon was the only lead. So after years of not moving, of just existing in that empty house, I packed a bag. I told myself I only wanted closure, but deep down, I think I was still chasing her. The flight to Oregon was quiet. Rain tapped gently against the window, the sky gray and endless. It felt right, like the weather knew the kind of story I was living. I rented a car and drove to the small town written on the ticket, Ashford Hill. It wasn't much, a few streets, a church, a diner, and a post office that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I showed her photo to a few locals. Most shook their heads. One woman, though, the waitress at the diner, froze when she saw it. "She comes in sometimes," she said quietly. "Same face, just shorter hair. Calls herself Ellen. Ellen. Eleanor. Laura." My heart nearly stopped. "Is she here?" I asked. "Not lately," the waitress said. "She got sick last year. Haven't seen her since spring." Sick. The word hit me like a blade. I found the small clinic on the edge of town. The nurse at the desk hesitated when I gave her the name Ellen Price. She looked at me for a long moment before saying, "She passed away 6 months ago." For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the whole world went silent, like even time itself paused out of respect. For the moment, my heart broke, all over again. "Did she leave anything?" I whispered. The nurse nodded slowly and disappeared into the back room. When she returned, she was holding a small envelope. My name was on it, written in her familiar handwriting. I sat outside on a wooden bench, the rain falling softly around me, and opened it. Inside was a letter, the last one she'd ever write me. It said, "My love, if you're reading this, it means you finally found the red. I didn't know how to tell you the truth without breaking you. You were always so strong for everyone. I couldn't bear to watch you fall apart for me. When the doctors told me about your illness, they said we couldn't afford the treatment. But I couldn't let you go. So I did what I had to do. I found help. I made choices I never thought I would. I took money that wasn't mine yet, but would have been ours. I paid for your life, even if it cost me mine. The cancer left you, but it didn't leave me. I found out too late. I didn't want you to watch me fade the way I watched you almost disappear. So I left you the only way I could, quietly, with love that never stopped. Please forgive me, my heart. You once told me that love was trust. I hope, after all this time, you can still trust that I loved you more than life itself." Laura! I must have read that letter 100 times, tears blurring the ink until it nearly faded. Every word cut and healed me at the same time. I'd spent years hating her, grieving her, cursing her name, and she had been dying while loving me. All the anger I'd held for so long melted into something else. Not peace, not yet, but something close. I drove to the cemetery on the hill. The sky had cleared just a little, a small patch of blue fighting through the clouds. Her grave was simple, a small headstone. No last name, just the words, "Beloved, brave, free." I knelt down, placed the letter at the base, and whispered, "You were never gone. You were just saving me." One last time, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and pine. For the first time in years, I felt her beside me, not in memory, not in pain, but in peace. And for a moment I smiled, because now I finally understood. Love isn't about staying, it's about giving, even when it means letting go. Months later, I sold the house, donated what was left of the company to a foundation for cancer patients in her name. Sometimes I still catch myself setting an extra plate at the table or turning to tell her something. Old habits, I guess. But now, when I look at that empty chair, I don't feel loss anymore. I feel gratitude. Because I got 30 years with the kindest soul I've ever known, and a lifetime's worth of love in the silence she left behind.